You know, there are these moments in history that change everything. A Roman emperor on the edge of a massive battle, a sign from the heavens, and a victory that would totally reshape an empire and a religion forever. So today, let's dive into the legendary vision of Constantine the Great and figure out how this one moment in the sky really did change the world.
These words, "in this, conquer," can you imagine? Supposedly blazing across the heavens, a direct command from God. It's the kind of epic story that movies are made of.
So here's the story we all kind of know, right? The Hollywood version. It's 312 CE. Constantine is right outside Rome, about to fight his rival, Maxentius. His back's against the wall, he's totally outnumbered. He looks up, searching for any kind of help, and bam, there it is, a cross made of pure light, right above the sun. Then that night, he has a dream where Christ tells him to use that symbol. So he does, he wins this impossible victory, and just like that, the Roman Empire is on a completely new path towards Christianity.
It's an incredible story, almost a little too incredible, you know? So the big question for us, as we put on our detective hats, is simple. What does the evidence actually say? Let's start peeling back the layers of this legend and see what's underneath.
Okay, to get to the truth of any story, you've got to start at the beginning. We need to look at the sources closest to the event itself. What were people saying in the days and years right after the battle?
Now, this timeline is where our investigation really gets going. Look at the dates. The battle happens in 312. We get our first written account just a couple of years later. But the famous story, the one with the vision in the sky and the voice from God, that version doesn't get written down for over 25 years. That time gap? Well, that's our first major clue that something's up.
And here it is, our first big plot twist. The earliest Christian writer to mention this, a guy named Lactantius, writing around 314, says absolutely nothing about a cross of light in the sky. He says Constantine was, quote, advised in a dream to put a Christian symbol on his soldiers' shields. A dream. That's it. A very, very different story.
And when you put the two earliest accounts side by side, it's just night and day. Lactantius, writing just after it happened, talks about a dream and a symbol on the shields. Pretty straightforward. Then you have Eusebius, writing a whole generation later, and he gives us the whole cinematic production, a vision and a dream, a cross of light, and that iconic catchphrase. These aren't just slightly different versions, they contradict each other on the most important parts of the story.
Well, what about physical proof? They built a massive arch for Constantine in Rome just 3 years after the battle. Surely, if a public miracle happened, they'd carve it all over this thing, right? Well, no. The inscription is super careful with its words. It says the victory was won by the inspiration of the divinity. Not Jesus Christ, not the sign of the cross, just the divinity. It's a term that was vague enough for both pagans and Christians to see what they wanted to see. It's a brilliant piece of political maneuver.
So if the earliest evidence doesn't really support the legend, where did it come from? For that, we need to zoom in on the man who actually wrote it, the historian and bishop Eusebius of Caesarea.
And this is where the plot really thickens. Because Eusebius himself told two completely different stories. In his earlier work, The Church History, he says God helped Constantine, sure, but there's no mention of a vision. Not a word. Then, years later, after Constantine has died, he writes the life of Constantine, and suddenly, this spectacular miracle appears out of nowhere. Our star witness completely changed his testimony.
Now, in fairness to Eusebius, he does name his source. He claims he heard this incredible story straight from the emperor's mouth, late in Constantine's life, and that the emperor swore an oath that it was true. So, what does that mean? Was the emperor misremembering things as he got older? Maybe polishing his own legacy? Or was Eusebius just faithfully writing down what the most powerful man in the world told him? It definitely complicates things, doesn't it?
This brings us to the next big question. Let's just put the idea of a literal divine miracle on the shelf for a moment. Is there any other way to explain what Constantine might have experienced?
Let's assume Constantine really did see something up there. He was clearly convinced by it. So what could it have been? Well, modern historians and scientists actually have a pretty fascinating theory.
It's a phenomenon sometimes called a sundog. Basically, under the exact right atmospheric conditions, tiny ice crystals way up in the sky can bend the sunlight, acting like little prisms. And when they do, they can create bright spots, arcs, and sometimes something that looks a heck of a lot like a cross of light around the sun. It's not a miracle, it's meteorology. And it's a perfect fit for the description.
And this theory gets even stronger, because it turns out 2 years before the famous battle, Back in 310, another source says Constantine had a vision of the pagan sun god Apollo. A lot of historians now think that was the solar hero. At the time, Constantine was a pagan, so he interpreted it as a sign from Apollo. But 2 years later, as his beliefs were shifting towards Christianity, that memory of a weird cross of light in the sky got reinterpreted. The memory of the event didn't change, but what it meant to him changed completely. So we've got a possible weather event being reinterpreted through faith and memory. But there's one more piece to this puzzle, and it's a brilliant bit of political propaganda that Eusebius masterfully wove into his story.
Remember, Eusebius is the only early source who says that Maxentius built a special bridge of boats to fight Constantine. Other accounts, he just got pushed off the regular stone bridge during the retreat. Now, a bridge of boats might sound like a minor detail, but for any educated Roman reading this at the time, it was a massive historical Easter egg.
And here's why that matters. The most famous guy in ancient history who ever built a bridge of boats was Xerxes, the Persian king who invaded Greece. To Greeks and Romans, Xerxes was the ultimate symbol of a prideful foreign tyrant. By saying Maxentius built a similar bridge, and using specific words like yoking the river that were famously tied to Xerxes, Eusebius was basically painting a giant sign on Maxentius's back that said, "Tyrant."
You see what he did? It was a calculated literary move. He turned a messy Roman civil war into this heroic epic. All of a sudden, Constantine isn't just another general fighting for power, he's a true Roman hero saving the city from a foreign, barbarian-style despot. It's just brilliant political storytelling.
So, when we put all these pieces together, the meteorology, the memory, the personal faith, and the propaganda, what kind of story do we end up with?
Okay, here's the most likely sequence of events. It all starts with something real, a solar halo. That natural event gets filtered through Constantine's own mind, his anxieties, his shifting faith, and a very important dream. Then comes the huge victory, which seals the deal for him. Over the next quarter century, as he tells and retells the story, memory smooths out the rough edges and amps up the drama. And finally, his official biographer, Eusebius, writes it all down, adding his own layer of political genius to create the perfect founding myth. That's how a legend is made. It reminds us that history isn't just what happened, it's the story we choose to tell about it.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question. The story of Constantine's vision is this powerful myth that literally changed the course of Western civilization. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other stories that we take for granted as historical fact are really just a complex mix of real events, faulty memories, and powerful storytelling, all designed to build the world that we've inherited?